In this video, I'm going over every Ash Pokemon that other trainers once owned and explaining how he got them. From Pokemon who he traded to Pokemon who were abandoned by their former masters. Trust me, there are a lot of those. This is every Ash Ketchum Pokemon that belonged to other trainers. And I'm gonna be brutally honest, a lot of these Pokemon I did not expect to be here. Some of them get crazy as we go on, especially in Pokemon Journeys, so stick around for that. Up first, we have Pikachu. That's right. Who better to start us off than Ash's first and the most well-known Pokemon in the franchise? Ash caught Pikachu in episode 1 when deciding who his starter Pokemon was going to be. When discovering that all the starters were already taken by other trainers who woke up on time, Ash told Professor Oak that he desperately needs an actual Pokemon. So out came a strange Pokeball with a little lightning bolt symbol. I don't think we ever see this thing again. Ash picks up this Pokeball and guess who comes out? Oh, it's Pikachu. How crazy is that? The mascot of the franchise, conveniently given to the main character. How could this have ever happened? But wait, how is Pikachu owned by another trainer, you may ask? Well, I think it must have been previously owned and taken care of because Professor Oak hints at this when he says that there is something wrong with Pikachu when he introduces it to Ash.
I think I should warn you, there is a problem with this last one.
While he didn't explicitly say Pikachu had any other trainers, we can assume that someone must have had Pikachu before Ash, because Oak knew how chaotic Pikachu was since we see Pikachu zapping everyone who touches him. Or it could have been Professor Oak's own Pokemon, and he decided to give away Pikachu as a starter since he had enough of Pikachu's temperament. Either way, someone owned Pikachu before it got to Ash, and most likely it was Professor Oak. Second Pokemon is Charizard, who was left behind by his original trainer. Yeah, a lot of you casual Pokemon anime watchers remember the time when Ash found Charizard on that little rock. So then you probably remember how this Charizard was not in fact a wild Pokemon at all. It actually belonged to this kid who runs a very organized crime group bigger than Team Rocket, and his name was Damien. Now you see, Damien was no ordinary trainer. He was a gangster. He left Charmander to die on that rock because it wasn't good enough for him anymore. Damien is always looking for bigger and better. However, once Ash pulled up and got his Pikachu taken away by Team Rocket, Charmander saw all of what Ash and Pikachu did for him while he almost died on that rock waiting for Damien to come back. So Charmander decided to put his foot on the scene and shoot some hot lava directly at Team Rocket. Somehow, while all of this was taking place, Gangsta Damien pulled up on the scene, and now having just witnessed this newfound fire within Charmander, he determined that Charmander is now good enough for him to take care of again. So right as Ash is about to catch Charmander, Damien explains that he was waiting here the whole time for Charmander, and that he is so happy to see him again, even though we know for a fact that this was definitely not the case. Charmander obviously sees through this guy and asserts his dominance, and now Ash has officially caught a Pokemon once owned by another trainer. But don't be fooled, guys, this isn't the last time we will see a fire type be ditched by the original trainer. Oh no, we got plenty more of those to come. Third Pokemon is actually Squirtle. Many people probably didn't even know this. I didn't even know this until I looked it up, but if you paid close attention while watching the original series, Pokemon did say that Squirtle was owned by another trainer. Officer Jenny told Ash about how Squirtle and all the Squirtles in the Squirtle Squad were all owned by other trainers before forming their terrorist organization. They left because their old trainers were abusive, which makes sense as to why the Squirtles caused havoc towards every human they saw.
It's really kind of sad, because if they had somebody to care about them, they wouldn't have turned out to be as bad as they are.
After Ash risked his life to save Squirtle during a bombing from Team Rocket, Squirtle leaps into Ash's arms, and even though he's the boss of the squad, he still wants to join Ash because Ash is the main character of the show. Although Squirtle wasn't Ash's best Pokemon, I can't lie, he was a fun addition to the team and had a great memorable backstory. Fourth Pokemon, we have Raticate. What? Ash doesn't own Eradicate, what's going on here? True, but he did own one for a bit, and I'm counting temporary Pokemon because it's interesting and makes my video longer, so ha. This all began while Ash was on the Titanic in that one episode, and he met this interesting looking guy with a top hat, and after fighting him in battle, the top hat guy explained to Ash to trade his Butterfree for his Raticate. By the way, I can't be the only one who never liked this guy. There was just something about this dude that I just never liked. Ash ended up trading with the Top Hat man, who manages to convince him that trading is great for everyone, and Brock, who clearly was head over heels thinking about other stuff, said blindly yes to Ash and that he should trade with the Top Hat guy. Clearly Brock sold this one, and Ash decides to go through with his trade and receives a Raticate. Like, Come on, bruh. What worse of a Pokemon could you have traded for, Ash? Shortly after the trade, Ash realizes how low IQ he is and he doesn't want Eradicate anymore. Also, Butterfree holds a lot of sentimental value to Ash since it was his first Pokemon he caught. But the Top Hat Man agreed to trade back, and you can tell that he is disappointed in Ash because he almost got a free Butterfree. 5th, Infernape. One of the all-time greats of Ash's Pokemon. Little do people know Infernape was actually owned by another trainer. Just kidding. I know most of you guys know he was owned by this random guy who liked to bully Ash and also bullied his Chimchar. So before Ash owned Chimchar, it belonged to the best written rival in Pokemon, hands down, and it's not even close. But yeah, this trainer was of course Paul, and he caught Chimchar after seeing his power against these wild Zangoose who were trying to beat him up. This Chimchar was no ordinary starter for sure. It had a knack for battling, but also wanted to be loved. Something Paul didn't really care about, only seeing Pokemon for their power and nothing else. Paul would constantly put Chimchar through very rough and intense training sessions to level up his strength and work on mastering Chimchar's Blaze ability, which Paul was very interested in. But after not succeeding, he blamed Chimchar and abandoned him because he saw no hope anymore of mastering Blaze. That's where this idiot comes in and says, "Hey there, pal, wanna come with me?" Paul looks back to see low IQ try to help Chimchar out, and he just looks back at him with disgust. But Chimchar actually accepts low IQ's offer. This is kind of where this whole rivalry gets even more intense, because now low IQ owns one of Paul's former teammates. While training with low IQ, he showed him the power of love and bonding with your Pokemon, and soon enough, low IQ managed to get Chimchar's Blaze ability under control, and the rest is history. This was probably the best low IQ Pokemon that belonged to another trainer because of the satisfying story arc that came with it. 6th Pokemon, Weasel. A lot of people love Weasel, but honestly, I think it's overrated. I'm gonna just take a few seconds here to talk about why Weasel is not that good. Weasel had a crappy win record of 41% with 16 battles, and people say they love Weasel because of its fighting spirit. Yeah, right, Weasel literally lost most of its battles. While yes, he did like to fight, my man's was kinda trash. Sorry, Weasel lovers, I had to put you in your place there for a second. But anyways, Weasel was first owned and caught by Dawn, and right away we already knew that Weasel was not meant for Dawn. It constantly wanted to battle, and Dawn was a contest performer. Weasel did, however, help Dawn out in the early stages of her career as a performer with Ice Aqua Jet. Eventually, Ash and Dawn saw that they had Pokemon that better suited the other trainer more. I'm pretty sure this was Ash's first and only trade with a travel companion as far as I remember, so that's pretty unique. 7th, we got Pignite, who was originally a forgotten Tepig who was unfortunately once again abandoned by a trainer who deemed it unworthy. We later learned that the owner of this Tepig was a guy similar to Damien and a bit less harsh than Paul, cause Paul didn't leave out his Pokemon to die. But Ash challenges this kid to battle, and the kid sends out an Emboar and a Heatmore against Ash's Snivy and Tepig. What a great matchup this is. Truly, Unova Ash was in a league of his own, all the way at the bottom of the dumpster. Tepig did not want to battle his former trainer because he still loved him, but then the kid just flat out says he was being nice to Tepig right before abandoning him. As soon as the kid said that, Tepig basically logged out of the match and left Snivy to defend against an Emboar and Heatmore. Shortly after, Snivy got knocked out and Tepig snapped back into reality. The first thing he does is evolve, and because it's the anime, one-shots both Emboar and Heatmore with just one move. This has got to be the biggest plot segment since Pikachu lost to level 5 Snivy. And speaking about Snivy, Ace Spot is Snivy. Now, I have to clarify that Snivy was technically never confirmed to be owned by another trainer because we never got to see the trainer. However, we have farmed enough evidence from this short bit after Snivy basically admits that she was abandoned by someone by wanting to battle against the kid who left the Tepig. So Iris and Silent were the first to suggest the idea of Snivy having been owned by a trainer before Ash.
Incredible! Snivy's moves are really high level.
I wonder if it abandoned its trainer.
9th Pokemon is Greninja. This Pokemon we're not gonna jump too much into detail about because nothing much about this Pokemon was really interesting for me to talk about. I mean, he lost to a Charizard while having been given a special gift of this mega transformation, yet that still was enough for him to win. Like, okay, imagine cheating in a game and having a natural advantage on your side, that being type advantage, and still losing. Basically Ash and Greninja's whole storyline right there. Greninja, formerly known as Froakie, was originally at Professor Sycamore's lab waiting for the right trainer to come and pick him up. This wasn't any ordinary Froakie though. No, this was a Froakie destined to have supernatural abilities that will allow him to transcend every other Greninja. And of course, Ash was gonna be that destined special guy to finally have Froakie. So Froakie, while waiting for special Ash, went through many different trainers who were all not worthy of his power. This meant that Froakie for a short period of time was indeed owned by other people before he got to Ash. So we can safely assume that in terms of experience, this Froakie was above the rest of all the starters if it had been with other Pokemon trainers prior to being given to Ash, which ultimately gives Ash an early advantage. Also, it's a special Pokemon destined for Ash, which was why it became the second ace Pokemon of Kalos, falling shortly behind Goodra. 10th place goes to Lycanroc. Now, originally I thought Rockruff had been with no other trainer prior to Ash catching him, which is true, but I'm gonna give it a mention on this list because it technically was owned by Professor Kukui, since he took care of it, kinda like an adopted pet in a way. So yeah, not an officially owned Pokemon, yet Rockruff still spent a long time with Kukui, and right before Ash caught Rockruff, Kukui was in fact the one who said they should travel alongside each other. Basically saying, look, this is an adopted child dog rock thing, and here I give you my permission to have him because you guys seem to be a good match. And that's pretty much how the talk went. 11th Pokemon is Mr. Mime. Now, just like Lycanroc, this was sort of another random mention because we honestly didn't know if Ash owned Mr. Mime or not. Because we saw Ash use Mr. Mime in a battle at the Flute Festival during Pokemon Journeys and he commanded Mr. Mime like one of his own Pokemon, I would assume Mr. Mime is in fact one of Ash's Pokemon. So if that's the case, then that would mean it was owned by someone else before it having belonged to Ash. I think we always assumed Mr. Mime belonged to Ash's mom or maybe even Professor Oak, but it could be Mr. Mime was always a wild Pokemon just helping out Ash's mom clean the house, which it's a possibility, but I doubt that's the case. Mr. Mime has always been mysterious since we never really got an explanation from Pokemon from where Mr. Mime came from or who actually owns it. 12th spot is Gengar, a classic fan favorite Pokemon many people wanted Ash to catch for years, and he finally did in Pokemon Journeys. However, this wasn't just an ordinary catch. Gengar actually had a pretty sad backstory before meeting Ash. Gengar's original trainer said he was cursed and had bad luck, so he blamed it all on Gengar and basically told him to stay at this house, which we now know as Cerise's lab. And the guy told Gengar to stay at this house forever, and like every other trainer who abandons their Pokemon runs off leaving proud now that they no longer have to deal with that Pokemon anymore. Gengar stayed at this house for many months and many seasons until Professor Cerise bought the house and moved in. Unknown of Gengar's presence at the time, Cerise didn't mind Gengar playing tricks on him because obviously Gengar did not like humans anymore because he didn't trust them. So he haunted the house and terrorized people for fun. Once Ash walked into the house, Gengar revealed himself and attacked him and Go. Later on, Gengar then cursed Ash and made him act all goofy, which led Go to come to the conclusion that it was Gengar who cursed him. But Ash refused to believe that and wanted to play it off like he was just sick or unhealthy. So Ash went for a run to try to wear off the sickness, and while running, he ran right into Gengar's old owner, and well, let's just say Gengar wasn't very pleased to see him again. Ash quickly stopped this attack and wanted to help Gengar out until he dipped and found Team Rocket, who tried to catch him, but Ash came to the rescue and helped Gengar escape. Definitely a more fleshed out backstory than most other Pokemon Ash caught, but overall this was a well worth it catch since Gengar helped out a lot later on in Pokemon Journeys. But you want to know who was really clutch in Pokemon Journeys that also just so happened to make it onto this list? Welp, in 13th place, we have Lucario. What? Lucario was owned by another trainer? That's correct. While Ash did hatch Lucario from an egg, basically meaning that it's impossible for another trainer to have owned it, we actually find out from Nurse Joy, who originally was the one taking care of the egg, that said this was passed on from many random trainers and traveled all throughout the Sinnoh region before getting to Ash, without hatching at all.
The egg was cared for by many people before it ended up with me.
If an egg like that didn't hatch from all that traveling throughout the Sinnoh region, that means it's probably for Ash, because he's low IQ and needs plot to save him. Overall, it was nice to know all of these Pokemon that weren't originally his. Before I made this video, I only knew of the greats like Charmander, Infernape, Weasel, Pignite, and Greninja to some extent. But some of these caught me off guard like Squirtle? Who even remembers hearing of that? Anyways, join my Discord. Bye!